I'm now joined by Paul Phillips, Director of Baseball and Softball Development for S2 Cognition. Paul, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Now, the marriage of technology and sports, baseball in particular, is noticeable through every level of the game. S2 Cognition has the ability to hit on a component that a lot of players just don't think about, the connection between an athlete's brain and performance on the field. Tell me how the S2 Cognition assessment works in unlocking that.
Yeah, so it's, a lot of the times we think all of the reasons why we are having troubles on the field playing are simply because of mechanics, my swing's breaking down, my body's not working right, or, something along the mechanical side of things. And a lot of the times it's not really that at all. You think about big leaguers, big leaguers have really good swings. They have great mechanics, and every now and again they may get a little flawed, but they fix them pretty quickly. And so what S2 Cognition can do is help understand why they make decisions the way they make, right? It's why are you chasing that pitch? Why are you swinging and missing so much? Why are you choosing to do what you do in the box? And all of that's happening on a sub 500 millisecond reaction time. And so, what we can do is help unlock a player's understanding of, do I have a visual system in my brain that's underdeveloped, causing me problems, or do I have a motor system in my brain that's underdeveloped, causing me problems? Because, without it, we're just guessing on what the players actually bring into the table. And so, what we can do is put them through an assessment and help them understand how developed certain brain systems are, and how well they're developed, and also see basically, okay, I can look at a profile and tell you, this is why you're causing those kinds of mistakes or having those kinds of mistakes on the field. And we can help pinpoint the training programs now. It's like, all right, this is what's causing you problems. This is what we do about it. We're not really guessing anymore on what a player actually needs to perform better on the field.
So 3 areas you guys look at: the visual processing, rhythm, timing, and execution control. How do you go about kind of monitoring those or figuring out where a player ranks in those areas?
Yep. So, each area that we measure is very important because, sometimes a player may look like they're hitting the ball to the backside of the field. They look like they're late. And, it appears the same way on the field, but it could be for 2 different reasons. It could be because one of my visual systems is underdeveloped, which means I need more time to process what I'm seeing, as well as it could be the other side that says, man, I just don't know when to actually pull the trigger and swing the bat. But they both look the same on the field, but you wouldn't train either one of them the same, right? You have to train one a certain way and the other one a certain way. And so you're just guessing on which one is actually causing the player to be late on pitches. It could be visual, it could be motor. And so what we do is we put them through the assessment, and then we give them ways to actually help them understand, okay, my report says this. My visual perception speed is in this percentile. My trajectory prediction visual system is in this percentile. And so we basically customize reports for wherever they fall into that percentile, whether it's in the elite area or in the average area or in the basic area. We customize reports for them to say, okay, if you fall into this category, if you're average at understanding where a ball is going to cross through in space, here are some drills and here are some ways you need to go about training so that you can make sure that you don't have that show up in a negative fashion on the field as much. Our goal is to try to just help understand what the player brings to the table and how can we help that player develop and do better training and be more efficient with what they're doing, instead of just this broad umbrella of let's just go hit. We want to help them understand and target systems of the brain that are responsible for the way they're playing so they can play better.
So the player has a report. Certainly, that information is processed by them. It's taken on to the coach. How does it work in terms of, you mentioned drills that'll be specific to that player's needs, but how do you go about getting that information into a coach's hands and allowing them to kind of work that in to the normal structure of what they're doing in a practice?
Yep. So what we do is if we're working with individuals, like if a player comes into LakePoint and takes the assessment, they can then take their report right back to the coach, and they can take it in and say, hey, I just did this assessment. Here is what it is. This is what it says I need to do. And so then the coach can take that and say, okay, what we need to do according to this profile says you need to train a little more this way, a little more this way, a little more this way. And we've got drills that can do that. And so they can then just put that into their batting cage routine. They can put that in their on-field BP routine. And so what we have most of the times coaches doing is when we go into a university or we go into a professional organization, we sit down and they put their people together. Like if they're low in impulse or they're low in timing, they group those people together, and then those guys have a different set of BP like drills than somebody that has something in the visual system, right? And so they group their players together. So it's like, okay, you guys, your drill work today in the cage is going to be this, and it's custom for those guys that they clump together that all have one same system that they need to work on, versus group 2 has timing control, group 3 has distraction, group 4 has whatever. And then they just keep putting their guys together so that they don't have to say, okay, what is yours? Your first hitter in group 1. Oh, you're distraction. So you have to do these drills. All right, and what's yours? Your group, your hitter 2. Oh, I'm impulse. So they just group them together to make it more efficient in their training.
Something like TrackMan allows a player to see how they measure up against players of their level. You mentioned that you guys have that ability to tell if a player's elite, where they rank in certain categories. How long did that process go about for you guys to kind of build up that foundation point to really say, okay, we've measured you and this is where you fit in?
Yep. So what we've done is we've created reference sheets, right? So we have a professional database that we reference our pro guys against. It's upward over 1,000 players. We have the top high school elite players in the country that are draft eligible, that basically these are the guys that our pro teams are looking at. And so we have an elite group of high schoolers. We also have Division I players. We also have now, from that point, we just started working our way downward, right? And so then we have 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds. And so we have a reference sheet that will fit best for their needs so that they get referenced against their peers until they get to that 17-year-old mark. And then they can either be referenced against peers or their upper level top high school prospects, right? And so that's what helps us understand how they fall as far as their percentiles and where they rank and stack up against the other players on that reference sheet.
Interesting. So Joe Dillon, obviously, who used to work with S2, now the Phillies hitting coach. What have you seen as far as the reception of players who take advantage of the S2 assessment, that ability to kind of tap into an area that maybe they didn't think about before?
Well, it's fascinating because, a lot of the times the guys don't even know why they're struggling at certain things, and it's been hindering, their performance on the field for their whole life. And then they finally take the evaluation and find out, it's that system of the brain causing me to do that. And now we know that there's ways to target that system of the brain with baseball drills, with baseball activity, not any kind of, hey, let's get on the iPad and play some games, and that's going to make me a better hitter. That's not what we do. We target that system of the brain that's responsible for the way they're playing on the field with drills that they need to do baseball related in the cage and on the field, so it transfers more so to what they're trying to do in the game. And I tell you what, it's fascinating. It's fascinating to see these players. They get better once they understand, A, what they need to work on, but B, how to target that system and work on it. It's humbling in the cage because they understand now that's my deficiency, or that's where I score lower at. It's not necessarily that it's bad. It's just, this is one of the lower areas causing that deficiency on the field. And I want to make sure that that gets targeted so I can minimize how much it's showing up out there.
Well, players at LakePoint Sports can take the S2 Cognition assessment at the Baseball Village this week at the PBR 17U National Championships, the LakePoint Challenge from July 23rd to the 27th, or the PBR Future Games from August 1st to the 3rd. You can find more about S2 and get registered at s2cog.com and follow them on Twitter at The Sports Sense. Paul, thank you so much for the time.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.